Alright. So for today's stream, I'm going to be working on this MG God Gundam that I was building earlier in the week, and I will be setting it up for LEDs. Now I did get the special parts to do the God finger in with LEDs, but the way that it's set up for that kit, I don't want to use it directly like that. They have it set so there's a magnet in the arm that actually controls when it goes on and off by moving the gauntlet shield up. I would rather have it be wired, well, one, have every light in it be wired together, and then have that all be controlled by a switch instead. So I'm going to be funneling the wires through the limbs and down into the feet so that they can all be connected down below the diorama that this is going to be a part of. So for that, I'm going to end up using my pin vise a lot. I've also got some chisel bits for it, and then a couple other tools that I'll end up using on this thing. When you go to start lighting up a kit, you're going to want to make sure to figure out exactly what areas you want to light up, because you don't want to just start making unnecessary holes in things. So for this kit in particular, I want to definitely light up this hand, the eyes, and the chest area here. Now this chest area is unfortunately not a clear piece, so I'm going to have to modify that a little bit more and get some clear plastic to put in there to cover the LED. I'm also considering wiring up back here if I can figure out a good method of making the rainbow ring that it gets when it does the Godfinger attack. But that's less of a priority than getting the rest of it lit up. So I'm gonna move my flame effects out of the way, just because I just had them there to play with them for a little bit. And changing out my drill bit. I'm just using a Citadel pin vise. It's one of the few decently priced tools that Citadel makes. You can also get these from a hardware store, or Privateer Press makes them, and a number of other companies will make one. So I'm going to take it apart slightly. Now I know that I'm going to want it to go through this foot, and I don't want to make it go through where the polycap is, because then it's going to be bent and flexed whenever I move the foot around. Unfortunately, this is a kit with screws, so there is a screw running through here that I have to avoid. And there is another one over here that I have to avoid. So I'm going to end up drilling. Let's see if I can take this red part off easily enough. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to end up drilling this way through the back of the foot a bit to kind of come at an angle. I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller drill bit because this one is a little unwieldy. I haven't done any seam welding on this kit yet. I will save that until after I get done drilling a ton of holes into it. So I clean it all up at once at that time. So I've got a nice little hole running through here now. I'm going to stick that back on, drill it a little bit. Despite being a drill bit that came with this pin vise, it doesn't quite fit into it very well. So that's kind of frustrating, but oh well. Now, the God Gundam also uses these wonderful little rubber pieces that don't want to drill quite as easily as I would like. So I'm going to try to use one of the chisel pieces that I have. See if that will work. If I have a receptacle for it. Which I don't. So I will need to pick up one of those at some point, apparently. So now I've drilled through here, and because of the way the soft rubber piece is, it's got it will kind of heal the spot that I drilled through. So I actually need to take the hobby knife to it to open that up a little bit for when I'm trying to feed the wire into it. I've used the Privateer Press hand drill before. That was the one that I previously had and lost when we moved. I haven't really used any other ones because they're kind of a tool that you only really need to buy once. I'm gonna pull this out a little bit. I make no guarantees about not drilling into my hand. I've already kind of cut my hand up quite a bit doing this, so sorry. Boy, I'm glad that these rubber parts are not common in Gundam, because this is really annoying. Yeah, so because I ended up drilling through this area here, I will need to put the piece back on because it's right where the tab is, and then drill back up through it to fully make the channel. By fully make the channel, I mean I'm just going to cut this tab partially off. There we are. I do kind of need it because there's not much else there to keep the foot in place. Ideally, I should probably actually just go recast those parts in resin to give it a good stable foundation. But I'm lazy. So I've got some wire that I will be using to do this, and got annoying rubber parts that are annoying. Just a tiny little bit of flash in here, making everything difficult. Of course, it helps if I put this stuff in going in the correct direction. So I'm just feeding the one wire in for right now, just to basically make sure everything goes. When I'm going to wire it properly, I'll end up having two wires going through here, positive, negative, of course. But this is just to make sure that I can get everything fed through properly. I'm also just not wiring it properly today because I don't quite have everything I need to make it light up just yet. I still need to get the power supply for it. which unfortunately the place we went to today did not have it in stock. Looking over the parts to figure out exactly where and how I want to drill through it. Fortunately, the screws on this side, so I'm going to end up having to kind of wire it at a bit of an angle to get it up through the knee. So I'm going to go through here first. When you're doing this, you may find that at times that you'll wreck whatever the actual snap together portions of the kit are, and you'll need to go back and do a lot of gluing afterwards. You could also fully take apart the kit to see inside while you're cutting parts apart and work with what everything is. Or you can just blindly start screwing through it like I am. It all depends on what sort of mayhem you like. The nice thing about the pin vise is it's got this section on the back here that's freely rotating, so I don't have to grind my palm to do this. I just kind of screw it mindlessly. These are really great for if you also want to do like holes in something or dents, minor little imperfections in armor. You can go through and just kind of lightly abrade the surface with it or drill all the way through for deeper impacts. You do also need to keep an eye on the drill bit a bit because it doesn't have really a super good grip inside the pin vise, and it will sometimes stop spinning while you're attempting to screw or drill, and that means that you just kind of need to drill backwards for a second and then just keep going. It usually just gets stuck on something. I am going to actually take this apart to try to see inside of it a bit better. I have to try to remember how exactly it goes together and comes apart too. So I've gone pretty much as far through that I need to for this piece. See where the drill bit makes it all the way through there. So I'm just going to need to come at it now through a different angle. And for my tweezers, I'll try to make this a little easier, but they seem to have disappeared. So that's annoying. Oh, I know where they are. Or I don't, so I will find those later. I'll just keep trying to thread this needle. Now you can see we've got the wire running through the calf. this particular part pain in the ass to get in when there isn't a wire right next to it. They can be run all in a parallel circuit, so I'll end up doing that basically, just making my way through them. But for right now, I just want to get the pathways taken care of. I'll end up having to take this apart and rewiring it later, but this will at least give me a good starting point once I have everything I need. I could wire every one of them individually if I really wanted to, but that would be a lot of wires I'd have to fish through this kit, and I don't really feel like doing that. Okay, so now I'm gonna want to go through here, through this little knee section. Well, it's going to be two wires running through the leg, since there's no lights below the waist, and they'll just kind of diverge and go looping around. Uh, no matter what, it's not going to be a incredibly easy task, but I think this will end up being the easier method in the end. Plus, then it's a lot less wires that I'm dealing with underneath the diorama when I go to get everything else lit. It's a bit like sewing. looks like I got to take this part apart to fish it through. It is a little necessary for stability. These leg parts don't quite snap right, like you would for a newer kit, so they need the screws in there to keep everything together, unfortunately. So now the wet leg is wired. Going to want to have it come up now through the hip and then into the torso. And so far, can't see the wire anywhere along the way because the armor is conveniently hiding everything. You can even really see it on the ankle. The armor there also conveniently hides it, so that's nice. Alright, now for the much more difficult parts. Mainly the remembering how the arms come off part. Because all of the arm parts feature a locking mechanism that requires the joint to be rotated in a certain direction in order for it to come in or out. There we go. Or sometimes you just rip the part off and break the stupid little locking mechanism, but that's okay. Now, the chest is already mostly hollow because it gets the Corlander shoved into it. I'm going to pull some of this apart. Release the polycap. So I've got my mostly hollow torso here. I know I'm going to want the wire to come through the arm, so I'm going to go ahead and start drilling up a hole over here for that to come through. And I'm also going to want a wire to come up through the head. So figure out exactly where I want that, and then drill through there. Now, because it's got this Corlander feature and it's mostly hollow, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse. it's nice that I don't have a bunch of stuff that I have to drill through, really. Except I'm going to have to deal with shoving the core lander back through everything once I do get it lit up. I may end up also just wiring everything to the chest and then having stuff branch off from there. So there's only the 2 wires going through the legs, but then everything just connects to it right there. Okay, so now with this piece, I'm going to want to use the bigger drill bit, even though the drill is giving me some kind of problems with that. So you can see my bulb is still a little bit bigger than this hole, so I will need to drill this out a bit more. I need a bigger drill bit for that. So I will come back to that with my Dremel to do that then instead. But this is a good starting point for the hole. It's a good, decent little hole on that area. Uh, in the show, he's got this little spot on his chest that glows green and has the King of Hearts emblem on it when he does Godfinger. So I will dig this out and drill this out more. I'll put some clear plastic here, put the bulb there, put a water slide of the King of Hearts emblem onto it, and it'll be a little tiny detail that no one can see, but I know is there and will look cool. Excuse me one moment. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Just a little call from Home Depot. We need to get our windows replaced, so kind of important. So now this is the HY2M hand, which comes with LEDs for the God Gundam. Has this nice little red LED in its. Come on, down. This was really easy to take apart earlier when I was first building it, but now it decides to just stay together. Alright. So yeah, this one comes with its own LED little system. Just a really basic little 3mm LED for in there. But I'm not gonna. I might use that bulb, but I'm not gonna use the system. So I just need to now drill through the rest of this. Going back to my earlier drill bit. Don't need to use the big huge one for this. Figure out where I want everything to go. Those screws present a slight issue because I would prefer to have it go through the back side here. But it will have to go kind of through the middle. Take the rest of this off, because that's nice and hollow on the inside. I don't have to worry about it too much. And make my way through. All of my streams are very exciting. You get to see me just sand, drill for hours and hours. not gonna drill into my hand. I'll slice my hand open, I won't drill into it. It's much harder to drill into it. So what do I get if I make it through the entire stream and don't drill through my hand? So now I just have this little shoulder section to figure out where I want to drill. I'm going to shove this through first. Alright, may have slightly drilled into my hand. Look, I made a goof. Yeah, I'm gonna have the one arm lit up. So at this point, I realized I forgot to put that one little piece of armor on. Which, of course, is now going to be a pain in the ass. So there's the God Goof. Now I got the head still that I'm gonna want to light up, and this I'm going to take it apart quite a bit. So I've got the clear parts in here that I'm going to leave, and I don't want to really mess with too much because they will illuminate pretty nice. I'll end up painting it somewhat to give it the black lining around the eyes, and I really just need to be able to have enough room in here for the bulb to sit. So for that, I'm going to focus mostly on the other side of the head and just kind of have the bulb resting in here. So I'm going to take out the face, stick it back together, and grab the larger drill bit again. Now I already know that the light bulbs aren't going to fit through this opening, but this will at least give me an area to work with that'll be easier and cleaner than just trying to cut with clippers to break this part apart, because I don't really want to damage the area where the polycap rests. Otherwise, then I have to end up doing a lot more gluing and fixing to get the head back on. Also want to make sure that I don't drill all the way through the back of the head, because that would just be bad. But this will give me enough room to get the wires through and somewhere to shove the bulb. I hope whatever I just dropped wasn't important. That's a problem. It's a good thing I did this with the ones that were already partially broken. Since the God Hands decided to go ahead and break, I'm not going to use the good ones on this part to try to clean this up a bit. I will instead end up dremeling through a lot of this head area to get the space I need. So really have to sand this head better. I did not do a great job on the nub removal. Alright, so there we go. Alright, so that is basically how you wire up a kit. When you do it for reals, you'll of course have 2 wires going through rather than just the one for your positive and negative, and you'll need to make sure that your bulbs fit wherever you need to. I unfortunately don't have the power supply to be able to light up anything, so once I get that in, I'll do another video showing how it actually looks, and of course I'll post pictures on social media and my Patreon and whatnot of how it looks when it's all lit up. Any questions before we call it? We've got about 15 minutes before I usually end the session. Yeah, you'll need 2 wires to go to each bulb. Pull one out. Somehow I've managed to already lose a bulb. So you've got, on your little LEDs, you've got 2 nodes. I'm not going to try to remember which one is which at the moment, but I believe it is the shorter one is negative, the larger one is positive. You'll just wire these up, and you can actually trim these to fit. If you look at the one that was meant for the God Hand, the God Finger, this was originally the same size as this one, and I ended up trimming it so it would fit into the hand. And you basically just wire straight to those, and then to your power supply and switch and whatnot at the other end. So I will very likely in the chest area here, since it's mostly hollow, have the wires split off to each of the different areas. So there's only 1 wire then running through the leg. There's only 2 wires running through the leg, only 2 wires running through the arm, and then they just kind of all meet in the chest. That will also allow me to later on add in the rear lights if I'm just figure out a good way of going with that. Yeah, it'll all be just the one circuit for each kit. Because I'll have this one fighting the Wing Gundam. So a circuit for the God, a circuit for the Wing, and then a circuit for the area lighting and any other lighting I need. Um, and I'll use resistors and whatnot to make sure I don't fry anything with the power. Gotta get this Lodo's base painted while I'm answering questions. Just giving it a nice coat of black on the rim to make it look a little nicer when I take photos and whatnot. Ideally, I would like to have this connected to an AC adapter, but since that's not always a viable option for shows, I'm gonna end up looking at hooking it up to a couple of 9 volts. LEDs thankfully don't need too much power really, so I can run it off regular household batteries. It will just, depending on the amount of LEDs I end up using, changes just how many I need and how often I need to swap them out. If I can get it so everything will run for 72 hours straight, that's mainly my goal, because that will be long enough to get it through the show. Yeah, I'll end up using resistors to make sure I don't fry the bulbs. The good thing is that they won't explode if I throw too much electricity through them. They'll just burn out super quick. But I'll use the resistors to solve that. And I'm by no means an expert on electricity. I'm figuring this out as I go along, bumble through everything. Yeah, basically each light gets a resistor from what I'm understanding about it. So in the chest, there'll be a bunch of resistors. Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. it was something that I wasn't really caring about when I was doing it, and I'm actually really happy with how things turned out. I wasn't expecting much from it. Oh, there's the LEDs. Yeah, it was just such a piss poor build. Really disappointed in it because it is a very cool design. Just does not stay together. I don't mind gluing Gundam kits, but I really shouldn't have to. It shouldn't be an absolutely necessary part of the build. Alright, well, thank you everybody who tuned in. Really appreciate that. I'll be back again tomorrow, where I'll be working on building and painting some miscellaneous kits. Most likely finishing up the Hainu, Baku, and painting something. Probably some Tau Crisis suits, or some DC Universe figs. Just a nice relaxing day of hobbying and answering questions while doing it. I hope you'll be able to tune in. Please make sure to hit follow if you haven't already. And a special shout out to Alex.com for giving me a follow right before the show started. You didn't get the little broadcast beep U-type sound during the show, unfortunately, but here's a nice shout out to you anyway. Next week will be a bit of a different schedule. I will be doing my usual Monday stream with Tom over on the Isekai Heavy Industries channel, where we'll continue to build the Katsuhira. But the rest of the week is a bit in flux at the moment. I'm starting my new job on Tuesday and need to figure out exactly when I will be streaming. So it might end up being a bit earlier in the day, or it might be a bit later in the night, depending on what day it is. Keep an eye on my social media and the Twitch events page for me to see when exactly those broadcasts will happen. Or just watch for the go live email as long as you hit follow. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope that you'll be able to tune in tomorrow.